Back now at 7:30 here on CBS Mornings, and the midterms are less than 3 weeks away. Every vote counts, but there are blocks of voters that really could sway things. We wanted to understand them more, and to help us, we are joined now by Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan and CBS News Elections and Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto. Okay, guys, so there are these groups that you've termed election influencers. They include, if I have this right, pressured parents, Trump true believers, restoring Roe voters, and the young and restless. No relation to the show. Anthony, starting with you, what can you tell us about these four groups you've isolated?
We want to understand the election through the motivations of the people who are participating in it and get away from the usual labels, demographic labels, party labels. We have interviewed so many voters through the course of our CBS News polling. This is what emerged from that data as people tell us this is how they process this campaign. So we want to bring you that.
Okay, so tell us, can you just give us a TikTok on each one of them? Pressured parents means?
Indeed. Pressured parents are people who were dealing with COVID and reported that they felt stress about that and their kids, and now they're facing financial pressure after inflation on top of that. That's where we start. And that group is somewhat closely divided, leaning a little bit more Republican right now, but it's those dual pressures that really define them.
Trump true believers?
Trump true believers are people who consider themselves MAGA Republicans, and they don't like the direction of the country. They want the party to be loyal to the former president, and they're really the center of gravity in the Republican Party right now.
Restoring Roe voters?
Restoring Roe, very simply, single-issue voters on abortion. These women say that is what is motivating them.
And my favorite category, not related to the show, as Tony pointed out, the young and the restless.
Young and the restless. I call this is a turnout story for the ages, which is to say they're not the largest group in the electorate, but they could really matter if they show up.
30 no kids. And Margaret, you spent some time with people in the pressured parents group. What'd you learn?
Yes, we've been digging into a lot of these topics, and this was one of the most powerful focus groups we did. Getting parents to talk about what they've been through. And the collective trauma of COVID is with us now. It's in the mental health crisis. This mother telling us about her 12-year-old running out of the house, screaming like a 3-year-old, having a meltdown. A dad talking to us about depression. We are just starting to kind of measure what it's done to us. Mental health. Also, you can measure it in the education crisis. Reading level decline for 9-year-olds has declined by the largest margin in more than 30 years, according to the Education Department. 100,000 caregivers gone. And then the cost you pay has gone up. There are very real stresses, and we've seen this erupt politically in school board meetings getting violent over what's even taught in the classroom. The lack of control is powerful. We saw Republicans harness it in the state of Virginia when it came to that election last year to elect a governor where education was put at the centerpiece of it. So we're watching how these voters define themselves because COVID's redefined us.
Of course. Now, one of the groups that we hear most about is the Trump true believers. Why is it important to understand their perspective?
And don't we kind of know how they're going to vote or the perception of how they will vote?
We absolutely know how they're going to vote. They're voting for Republicans, but what makes them important, two things. One is when you see Republican candidates talking about election denialism, talking about being loyal to the former president, they know that they need the votes of these folks. So that helps you understand the narrative of the campaign.
And who they're talking to.
And who they're talking to, even though for the rest of voters, we know that the former president is a net negative. So it's very much about turnout for a lot of these groups. And then you ask yourself, well, if those candidates moderate their stances at all, do some of these folks stay home? And that
people get caught up in hearing, certain narratives. And they say, well, they're isolating many of us. But it's not that they're isolating many of us. They are speaking to their core audience.
Exactly.
Margaret, the Roe voters that we've isolated, what kind of an influence could they have? Are they going to turn out in the numbers that Democrats are hoping they will?
Well, Anthony's been tracking that very carefully, and on Sunday's Face the Nation talked about the momentum stalling for Democrats on the back of what had been a really engaging momentum for them. But what we've seen is that for this midterm election, it's not just a referendum on the president and his party. This issue is literally on the ballot in at least 5 states. So when we talk about turnout, that could matter. That could be an influence there. And when you look at what happened back in August, if you remember, in the traditionally conservative state of Kansas, people were surprised when the overwhelming vote was to hold on to abortion access. So this is a new dynamic. And for years, abortion had been, and you could speak to that as well, that a single issue voter platform for the other side.
Yeah.
And so now Democrats are hoping, and you heard President Biden just yesterday come out and say his first legislative priority in a new Congress, if Democrats win, will be trying to create a law to protect abortion access, something that hadn't been done in 50 years. They're trying to motivate people to turn out.
Well, we'll see in the
20 days
future.
and counting for the election. It's going to be a long night for all of us.
We
Looking forward to
appreciate
it.
you
Long
coming
night,
in
long week.
and making
Yeah.
this information digestible. Thank you so much,
thanks,
Margaret
guys.
Brennan and Anthony Salvanto.
Thank you.
Thank you.